Lucy Letby. Lucy Letby is a fresh-faced nurse who you probably wouldn't expect to be accused of killing babies. Letby is being charged with killing 5 boys and 3 girls. She is also being charged with attempting to murder 5 boys and 5 girls between June 2015 and June 2016, while she worked in a neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital. At some point in history, the disbelief that a healthcare worker could kill his or her patients has dissipated. If convicted, Lucy is about to enter her name on to a list of rare serial killers. Even more rare is the fact that she has killed babies. There are, however, a couple cases in history that I think will help us understand the possible motivation of Lucy Letby's alleged actions. This video is going to be a deep dive into historical medical serial killers, with an emphasis on motives, operandi, and personality. Cases similar to what Lucy Letby is being accused of will be examined even more so, along with an emphasis on how some of these types of serial killers were caught. Then finally, I will be applying what we have learned to the possibilities of Lucy Letby's case, which we will have more details about when Letby's trial starts in October this year. A quick disclaimer and intro, then we will start some good old-fashioned speculation. Most of my videos are based on observation, speculation, and history. I do not claim that Lucy Letby is guilty. She is not until it is proven that she is. I am only looking at prior similar cases of what she has been charged with to determine possibilities of what may be revealed in Letby's upcoming trial. All these people have a couple things in common. They are all nurses except for 2 who are nursing assistants. They are all convicted serial killers exception for 2 who were convicted of manslaughter and attempted murder. They were all caught and brought to justice to face a court sentencing. When I look into a case, I like to ask myself questions, basic questions, some with basic answers and some with very complex answers. The suspect in this case is Lucy Letby, a 31-year-old woman from Cheshire, England. Lucy is believed to have killed babies while she worked as a children's neonatal nurse at the Countess of Chester Hospital. Lucy worked at the Countess of Chester Hospital's neonatal unit from 2011 to 2018. An investigation was launched at the hospital in 2017. The investigation was launched due to a number of incidences between June 2015 and June 2016. These incidences resulted in 15 deaths and 17 life-threatening incidents, all involving babies. Lucy is being charged with the murder of 8 infants and the attempted murder of 10 others. Now the harder questions to answer. How did police come to believe that Lucy Letby was the killer of these babies? How did she commit these murders? There are 3 things that could have led police to believe Lucy was the person committing these crimes. Confession/admittance. Elizabeth Wetlaufer, a nurse from Canada, was caught for her crimes because she confessed to killing 8 senior citizens and attempting to kill 6 others. She actually confessed to several people before she eventually provided police with a 2-hour confession. She worked as a nurse between 2007 and 2014. The Lane's Angels of Death were 4 female nurses' aides who killed during a 6-year duration at the Geriatriezentrum am Wienerwald in Austria. The women targeted feeble victims together. 49 murders were confessed to, but it is believed they may have been responsible for up to 200 murders. Wagner convicted of 15 murders and 17 attempted murders, and 2 counts of assault. Lydolf was convicted of 5 murders. Mayer and Gruber were convicted of manslaughter and attempted murder. These 4 women were caught after talking about their latest victim in a tavern. They were overheard by one of their colleague doctors and an investigation was launched. Lucy Letby had pleaded not guilty at her last hearing, which means she will be going to trial, and it's obvious that she did not confess her crimes to the police because the investigation was launched into the deaths of the babies before Lucy was arrested, or probably even a suspect. Most of the time healthcare workers who kill elderly patients will get away with their crimes a lot longer, but in most cases of healthcare worker serial killers, how they are caught is by statistics. When an increase in deaths occur at a hospital, usually it will raise a huge suspicion, especially if the number is very significant. Which is most likely what triggered the investigation into the deaths at the Countess Chester Hospital. Kristen Gilbert. Alarms were raised at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in Northampton where Kristen worked because 3 nurses reported their concerns about an increase in cardiac arrest deaths. There was also a visible decrease in epinephrine supply stock. An investigation was launched in 1996. Kristen left the VAMC shortly after. She was convicted in January of 1998, although it was said that she was on duty for half of the 350 deaths that occurred during her employment at the VAMC. She was only convicted of 4 murders. Kristen Gilbert was later diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Her younger years were full of lying, manipulation via suicidal threats, and harsh bursts of violence. She has been said to be cold and distant. The next case has some similarities to Lucy Letby's case. Beverly Gale Allitt. An English nurse who was convicted of killing 4 children, attempting to kill 3 more, and 6 counts of grievous bodily harm. Her crimes were committed between February to April 1991 in a period of only 59 days. Beverly was 28 years old at the time of her crimes and 30 when she was convicted to spend the rest of her life in prison. The number of deaths and similarities in the manner of death caused suspicion to rise. When medical records of the victims were compared to employee work logs, Beverly became the prime suspect. She also had access to the drug insulin, which was used to poison some of the victims. For many, it was hard to believe that Beverly could do such a thing. It is believed that Beverly Allitt suffers from a mental illness called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Her victims were aged 7 weeks to 11 years old. In May of 2017, an investigation began at the Countess of Chester Hospital, where Lucy Letby worked. The investigation began after an unexplainable increase in deaths between an 18-month period roughly around March 2015 to July 2016. In 2013, records show that 2 babies died in the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital. In 2014, the same unit had 3 babies die. However, in 2015, a total of 8 babies died that year. In the year of 2016, by June, 5 babies were reported to have died on the neonatal unit. Statistically, this was found to be a 10% increase in baby deaths. In response to the unexplainable increase in newborn deaths, the Countess of Chester Hospital stopped caring for any baby under the age of 32 weeks. All babies 32 weeks and under were transferred out of the hospital for care. The 3-year-long investigation eventually expanded to include inquiries into 17 baby deaths and 16 non-fatal collapses. During this 3-year investigation into the unexplained deaths and collapses of these babies, it is very likely that police investigations included finding correlations between death records/collapse records and hospital work logs, cause of death confirmation, testimony records, witness accounts, interrogations, medical analysis, incident records, medical supply records, professional accounts/opinions/statements, medical records for the neonatal care unit, identifying possible victims and survivors, confirming victims and survivors, and eventually compiling a comprehensive probable cause affidavit. All this information compiled and analyzed led police to arrest a sole suspect, Lucy Letby. Another way this type of serial killer has been caught in a hospital setting is by eyewitness. Neil Hogel, from Germany. On June 22, 2005, Neil Hogel was caught intentionally manipulating a patient's syringe pump. When colleagues caught Hugo, he was trying to administer admittance. The incident prompted a police investigation. Co-workers of Hugo's began to come forward to voice their suspicions. The police investigation included investigating all hospital deaths between 2003 and 2005. This inquiry into deaths and work logs revealed that the number of deaths at Delmenhorst Clinic doubled during Hugo's employment. After reviewing death records and work logs, police found that 73% of deaths at the hospital in 2005 could be connected to Hugo's work schedule. In October 2014, an investigation was launched, and 200 suspicious deaths were identified that could be linked to Hugo. In November of 2016, police announced that they were able to prove Hugo committed 37 homicides between December 2002 to June 2005. In August 2017, the number of victims attributed to Hugo was said to be at least 90. In November 2017, the number of victims attributed to Hugo was revised and increased to 106. Kimberly Clark signs. In spring of 2008, the number of EMS calls to the DaVita's Lufkin Clinic raised alarms. After the problems continued, a superior at the Lufkin Fire Department was notified. This person then secretly notified a state health inspector and asked them to look into what was happening. With inspectors on site, 2 more patients died. 2 patients at the hospital during this time later testified that they saw signs draw a bleach solution into 2 syringes. She then injected the substance into the 2 victims' dialysis machines. When confronted, Signs said she was cleaning an unused dialysis machine. Police were called in and the clinic was shut down for a total of 2 weeks as an investigation began. An investigation concluded that Signs was present during every death that occurred at the Lufkin Clinic in April 2008. Police also found Google searches for information about bleach and if it was deadly to humans on her computer. An expert would later testify in court that testing of the victims' blood showed that their blood was exposed to bleach. The investigation that would ultimately lead to charges against Lucy Letby started in May 2017. Suspicion arises because of a 10% rise in neonatal fatalities. The babies that were victims to Lucy's alleged crimes suffered from heart and lung failure. It was said that the babies were unusually hard to revive, and those who died developed strange blotches on their arms and legs. Due to the significant increase in baby deaths, the Countess of Chester Hospital stopped taking in and caring for children under 32 weeks in July 2016. Shortly before Lucy's first arrest, the hospital placed her on suspension. On July 3, 2018, police arrested Lucy and charged her with 8 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. After her arrest and release, the hospital brought her off of suspension and moved her into an administrative position where she wasn't interacting with patients. The events of Lucy's suspension, arrest, and job position transfer led me to believe that almost as soon as police made a connection between Lucy and the murders, they notified the hospital. The hospital knew there was a problem and something in the hospital was causing baby fatalities. The complete closure of the neonatal program made me believe that they probably weren't suspicious of a specific person. I don't believe Lucy was caught in the act. I do believe that statistics and her work logs led police to absolutely 100% believe that Lucy was the reason for the spike in deaths. It took about a year for police to arrest Lucy. It was also shortly before that when she was suspended from the hospital. I believe that the police may have suspected Lucy but didn't have enough evidence to convict her. When she was arrested, I bet she was interrogated in hopes that she would confess. When she didn't, police had to let her go and the hospital had to let her come back because without evidence to hold and charge Lucy, firing her could have become a liability for the hospital. Lucy was arrested again on June 10, 2019. I'm not sure why police would arrest her a second time. Maybe they wanted to interrogate her again in hopes that she would confess. Maybe they wanted access to her phone or anything else that could be evidence. Either way, they probably arrested Lucy the second time in hopes that they could somehow find more evidence they needed to charge and ultimately convict Lucy. Lucy was arrested in November 2020 for the third time. In a November 10, 2020, press conference, Detective Chief Inspector Paul Hughes said, "The woman is currently in custody helping officers with their inquiries." On November 11, 2020, a statement saying Lucy was being officially charged was released. On October 4, 2021, Lucy appeared in court and pleaded not guilty to the attempted murder of 10 babies, and she also pleaded not guilty to the murder of 8 babies. "I believe that the 3-year investigation pointed to Lucy because of death record and work log correlation. I also believe that the manner of deaths and similarities pointed to a medical overdose that was administered on purpose due to the number of seemingly identical incidences that either led to death or non-fatal collapses. Now, I cannot say for sure if Lucy was in the room with the baby shortly before they had a medical emergency. I also cannot say if she was the first to notice the collapses or if she was the person to sound the alarm for help. This information would be based on witness testimony and video logs. If this information and evidence does exist, we will know more starting in October 2022. Thank you for watching. Part 2 will be more of a speculation video, consisting of how I think Lucy Letby murdered her victims and the hardest question, why she may have done what she is being accused of doing.